Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Now we have a question for everyone listening today. Who are you without your job? Simple question, right? But the answer you give might actually come at a shock. Is your job or your business your life? Does it consume you? Can you one day sell your business, or are you the business? Today, Gus Arianto and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Shannah Kennedy, one of Australia's leading strategic life coaches and co-founder of Human Elevation. Shannah has consistently been ranked Australia's top 10 business coaches with over 20 years of experience in executive strategy, transition, values, vision, and life planning. Shannah is here today to teach us all the importance of a life plan and how it can help us to answer that golden question: who are you without your job? Welcome to the show, Shannah.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for having me. I just love talking about this topic, so I'm ready to go.
And Shannah, thank you for donating your valuable time. We know you're busy, and yet you still donate your time in the morning for our audience around the world, and we appreciate this. And I don't know what to say. A couple of days ago, we met, and you asked both Natalie and I, who are you without your job? And I actually wake up this morning to do this podcast. I love you, but I hate you, because the question is so simple, but it's so difficult. So I can't wait to bring this to the world. Who are you without your job?
Yeah, it's such a big question, isn't it? And I know that when I go into a corporate and I coach someone, a CEO, and I'm like, well, who is, Peter without Macquarie Bank, or, who is Dustin Martin without Richmond Football Club? We need to really think about this question. It's really important, because you are not your job. Your job is what you do. Your job is what you do. It is not who you are. And we really need to think about that statement for a long time.
Oh, it's goosebumps stuff in here.
And simple question, right? But like when I was thinking about it, even, with the intro, the answer might actually come at a shock. So I know our audience is all keen to learn from you, Shannah, and Gus and I are too. But before we do launch into the questions, we do have your two fun questions that we prepared for you. And the first one we'd love to ask is, would you rather always be slightly late or super early?
Super early.
And why?
Super early, 100%. Yeah, because I like to avoid stress at all costs, and I like to really enjoy my life. So there's enough chaos and drama in life without me creating any more for myself. So I'm always early.
Well, that's fantastic. You sound like my husband. He always turns up to things so early, and exactly what you said. Why stress? You're all relaxed when you get there.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And what about if you could live in any country, what country would that be?
Oh, wow. I think it would be somewhere like, there's either like the Italy or the Colorado. I've got two beautiful favorite things: the Colorado Rockies with the mountains and the, big nature and big walking, but there's no water there. So I love the Italy too. So water. So, I find that one difficult to answer.
So either of the two. Yeah. And what about Shannah? I've mentioned to the audience a little bit about yourself, but there is so much more to Shannah Kennedy. Can you share with us who is Shannah Kennedy and a bit about your businesses as well, please?
Yes. Well, I am the A-type overachieving perfectionist achievement junkie, who basically left school and said, watch Wall Street, the movie, and thought, yep, I'm going to be a stockbroker. So I rang a stockbroking firm every single day for 14 days until the HR lady couldn't stand me and gave me a job in the filing department. So I started in the filing department, and within 2 years I was sitting on that trading desk, and excitement. I soon realized it was like the Wolf of Wall Street, no place for a female. And this is, 35 years ago. So it was just, there was no women around, and really life was not like the movies. So I traveled the world for a couple of years, came back and went back into stockbroking because that's what I knew. And then I thought, I actually don't even like this world. So I moved into sport, corporate sport, and became a sport manager assistant. So I learnt the ropes from a lawyer who loved golf and had 10 of our country's best golfers. And he said, if you want to learn, I'll teach you how to run a business from the ground up. So I was like, I am in with both hands. Absolutely. So that was my training, and then I became the Jerry Maguire's, like the sponsorship manager for a big eyewear company. And I had over 100 athletes to look after. I flew around to sporting events, the dream job. And I married my job. I was my job. I had no life but my job. I married my job. I loved my job. It was in my blood. It was in my veins. And I had no regard for the human being that I was. And I had no concept of who I was without my job. And that ended in severe burnout. That ended in chronic fatigue by the time of 30, which, 23 years later, I still have to manage on a weekly basis. I really burnt my body and my mind and my soul by marrying my job. I loved it, by the way, because I was an achievement junkie. So in that period of sickness is actually when I started to study life coaching, because I had been around corporate sport for a long time and high performance and Olympians, and I saw what happened when your job's taken away. And, who are you without your job? I saw what the destruction, the depression, the anxiety, the suicide, the gambling, the alcoholic addiction, because nobody knew who they were without their sport. So they had a sporting plan, but they didn't have a life plan. So I opened my business after studying to coach athletes into retirement, and they retire by the age of 30. So it was really about what is the next season of your life, the next chapter, and preparing for that so that you can love where you're at. So hence the life plan was born. And my coaching business is now 20 years old. I've written 7 books for Penguin. I've got some vision board kits at Kmart. I've raised my family. I've got a 17 and an 18-year-old and a husband. And the one thing that I get up every day for is actually to work on the business of self, because your job is what you do. It's not who you are. And I did learn the hard way early on.
What an incredible story. Shannah, this golden question of who you are without your job, it resonates so much with business owners as well, because as you know, you invest so much time into your business. It kind of is like your baby. If you want to liken it like that, you go to sleep thinking about it, you wake up, it's endless. This whole, you mentioned the life plan. For anyone that's listening today, I'm going to be honest, I don't have a life plan. Gus, do you have a life plan?
Well, I guess that's why I said, when we spoke a couple of days ago, just for the introduction, Shannah, and you asked these questions, it changed a lot of things inside my brain, because even the question of the life plan that we know, even the question of just like what you said, I am my job. That's what you said, Shannah, back then. I am my job. And then I start questioning, am I my job? But then in this podcast, will be interesting. The fact that the audience will be business owner that have employees, corporates, and people like us, like me, that is an employee of an organization. That is this a wrong thing to even ask? Am I not to be my job when I get paid in full? So come back to the question of Natalie, I am reworking about my life plan, learning from Shannah. And also, I want to ask you back, Shannah, is it wrong or right to say, I'm not my job, when you are expected in this world right now to be committed, to be loyal, to be focused 100%, and I'm coming to the place where I work or the business that I own saying that, hang on, I'm not my job. Is that right to do for success conversation in what we do?
Okay, so high-performing humans who, you know, I've got a very successful business. I coach CEOs and very successful people. We need to ensure that you turn up to your job the best version of yourself. So you need to be first. When you are the best possible version of yourself, you want to open that door to your career with a full tank. You want to have a plan for yourself. You know the purpose of going to work because you've got your life plan. You know the purpose of setting a boundary and saying no because you've got a life plan. You know, we talk about 20 years. All of my clients do a 20-year plan. Matthew McConaughey said in his amazing Oscar speech, your role model is your 10-year-older self.
Yeah.
So let's think about your 10-year-older self. And for all the listeners, how old are you in 10 years? Put that little note in your head. How old are your children in 10 years? How old are your parents in 10 years? Instantly, we have a 10-year dot point on our GPS system of life. The landscape will change. You will change. Your body will change. Your mortgage payments will change. Your kids' ages will change. You'll be in a very different stage and season of life. So the decisions that you make today, you want to make without regret. So the reason that, you know, I didn't do a lot of speaking early on was because I wanted to be with the family. Whereas now, when they're 17 and 18, I can go for a month. No one cares, right? They're with their friends and they're going, go, mum, go be on TV, go on stages. And it's about looking back, saying, I've got no regrets because I made the decisions for the season of my life and I paced the marathon of life. So life is a marathon. And all of these 5-kilometer stages are different stages in our life. And so is your life. You know, each decade is a different chapter and you have to think about what's most important to me in each chapter. So if you just wrote about your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s, and you had a priority list about what's going to be most important, you know, family is not always going to be there. The kids are only going to be little for a very short time of your 80 years, very short. So where do you want to put them? Do we want to be married to the job? Or do we want to make sure that we do a great job, but we also attend those kids' sporting events or show up or be present when we get home from work? When are the years where you are going to work as hard as you possibly can because you want to? You are passionate, you love it, but you also have your health and well-being as your first priority. And health is mental health, physical health, and emotional health. There's 3 different buckets. There's 4 actually in spiritual health. So I get up every day just to serve my 4 buckets of health, because when they're full, I can open the world and show up as a coach, as a mum, as a wife, as a daughter, as a friend, as a business owner. If I don't put myself first and know who Shannah Kennedy is, then if I'm just married to the job, I'm the hamster on the wheel, take the job away, and what's left? When you're at your eulogy, no one talks about your job.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Shannah and Natalie? Last week we interviewed amazing man, Greg Gillies, and he mentioned the same thing, similar thing, maybe not the same thing. Working on yourself, working on areas, buckets of yourself, health, mind, spirits, and physical. It sounds easy on the screen, you know, like when we talk about it, yeah, that makes sense. But where do people start? How do we start? Because if it's easy, then 100 people around us will do it. Start with wake up in the morning early and putting yourself into a space where you can even think about yourself is already hard for many, many people. So where should we start? How do we start? Even when we agree that we need to work on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, the starting point is we need to fall in love with ourselves first. You are your own best friend. So are you doing for yourself what you would do for your best friend? And we start with, there's 3 parts to really understanding who you are and being the best version of yourself. The first is self-awareness. The second is self-leadership. Where are you going? And then the third is self-management. How are you going to manage yourself along the way? So self-awareness is, what is most important to me in my life right now? And we always start with that question, like, what is most important to you? Let's just start right at the beginning, build the foundation. And then we think about, what are your values? So you need to know your 3 values. And most people have no concept of their own values. They might know the company values, but they might not know their own. So let's get into, what are your own values? So they're your lighthouse. They're how you make decisions. They're the top 3 most important things to you and your personality. And we'll all have different ones. So mine are health, number 1. Family, number 2. Achievement, number 3. If I don't achieve every day, I'm miserable. So the achievement might not be, did I sell 1,000 books today? Because that was the old toxic person. The achievement is, did I, every time I wash my hands today, which is about 6 times, you go to the bathroom, did I take 3 grounding breaths on the marathon of today? Did I stop at the Gatorade stop, reground myself, reset my nervous system, clear my mind to make better decisions in the next 2 hours? So that's really about staying in control of your emotions and yourself, and thinking about, what choice am I making that makes me feel how I want to feel? Why did I go for a walk this morning at 6 a.m.? Not because I felt like it. I did it for my 10-year-old self, who wants to be fit and flexible and strong. So that voice, that 10-year-old voice on my 20-year plan, is shouting at me all the time. You're not doing it because you feel like it, because no one feels like it. No one feels like going to the gym, but we do it because we've got purpose. And the purpose is, each decade, I want to show up in peak condition. So I want to feel stronger at 60 than 50.
Shannah, can I ask a question? For example, if you don't mind, I'm asking your own values that you mentioned, which is health, family, and achievement. How do you come up with this? Because, this is 3 important one. I want to copy it. Many people will copy it, but then someone said, where is love? And then someone else will say, where is wealth? And someone else will say, my value will be spiritual connections or something. Now, how do you manage yourself to be able to come up freely, independently, consciously? This is my values, without any disturbance from influence, and without the feeling of, nah, I think my values is not sound sophisticated, I better put achievement, because Shannah put achievement in there, like my value, I need to put achievement, right? So I'm not doing this without achievement in my values. How do we do this?
Well,
how do we find?
You can Google online lots of human values, and it'll give you big lists. In all of my books, I put about 24 values for people to choose from. So some people, it's economic security. It's really important to them to feel secure economically. For some people, it's creativity. They're very highly creative people. So it is a part of them. For me, I know I was born an achievement junkie. I need to be ticking things off, or I'm just not happy. So I might have to tick off, I went to yoga. It doesn't mean I have to work harder, but I have to have some system that feeds that beast in me. So everyone's is different. So in all of my books, I actually have the values game, because I think it's the most important thing. The Life Plan and Plan B is my 2 bestsellers. It's a process of elimination. So is wealth creation vital for me? No. That's a product of everything else. Okay. Is creativity important to me? Not really, because I'm pretty structured. Is recognition important to me? No, not really. Not really. Haven't even updated my website. Not really. But health is everything. Mental health, physical health, emotional health. I cannot function when I'm not at my peak. Family happiness doesn't mean is my family happy, because you can't make a 16 and 17-year-old happy all the time. It means, how am I showing up? Am I being a fun and inspiring wife? Because that's what he married. So keep practicing being that. And if you can't be that, go and look at your diary and change it. If I can't show up as a warm and nurturing mum because I'm too exhausted, go change your job. Pull back, set some boundaries, because that's most important to you. Am I present for my client? Right? That's my family happiness. My clients are my family. Am I present for my staff, for my clients, for my mum, for my dad? And if I can't be, your job is just not right. You need to pull back. And
So,
then,
Shannah, can I stop you there? I have to stop you here, because there's a lot of listeners listening to this. So what you're saying is, you started by saying, to be successful in your career and job, you need to show up the best version of yourself. And then 21 minutes later, you said, hey, if you can't show up the best version of yourself, don't do the job, because you actually sacrifice a lot of things, not only your family, the job itself.
not don't do the job, but create some boundary.
Yeah, create some boundaries. What I mean is stop even what you,
Yeah. So like, my husband is a CEO. He has a huge, huge job. And he comes home and he sits in the driveway, sometimes 15 minutes. And the dog's at the door waiting. We're all about doing our thing. He's not coming in until he's ready. He needs to decompress. He needs to finish the phone call. He needs to just sit in silence and gather himself in order to open the door for the most important meeting of the day, which is his family. And he might give us a great half an hour and then be exhausted, but he will show up first and foremost and treat us like we are the most important meeting of the day. So you can go and do your job. You can go and do your job to the best of your ability and be passionate and committed and give it your energy. But you have to have a boundary. If our footballers turn up and they haven't slept properly, they haven't eaten properly, they didn't, what happens to an athlete when they don't leave the track? How can they do a personal best the next day if they stay on the track and keep going? And that means, are we still working on the couch, working in bed? We need to leave the track, and we need to value recovery. So recovery is actually what makes the athlete keep improving and gives them the ability to turn up to training the next day fresh. So how can you be, and I know when I was burning the candle and working 7 days a week and married to my job, if I had valued my health and my recovery, I probably would have done a much better job if I'd set some boundaries.
Yeah, which is, we can see both successful people that is actually not healthy and successful people that are working on themselves, show up and being present. And it once again, it required values, required commitment, and required boundaries, and required acceptance that it's okay that one day you actually end up eating popcorn at 10 o'clock at night because we are human. But
sometimes we do need to marry the job for short periods. Like when I go and write a book, I go away for 7 days. I don't speak to anyone. I work, 16, 17-hour days. My eyes are bleeding, my fingers are broken, but I write the book and I come home and recover. So we can do these short, strategic, big project things, as long as you see that that's a little bit of a sprint in the marathon, but it's not all the time. It's really about pacing your whole life in its decades. There's a great quote that says, plan in decades, think in years, work in months so you can live in days. Now you think about that. Let's plan in the decade, your next 10 years. Let's think in years. So think about this year. Let's work in the month. get it really tight, you know, what the boundaries are, what's important, my health, all my gyms locked in, my massage is locked in, you know, and all the work is locked in. And then I can let go and be present and mindful and live in today. I'm not stressed today because I've done the plan. I know where I'm going. I know the purpose of my life, which is to serve my values. It's not my job. But I want to show up and do a great job, and I love my job. I've done this job for 20 years, and I've got another 20 to go. I feel like I'm just beginning. I love it. I'm passionate about it, but that's because it's paced.
Shannah, I have no doubt that everyone listening is, you know, this conversation is great, and they have acknowledged that they need a life plan. Is it as simple? I'm just thinking the end result, we need a life plan. Is it as simple as opening up your laptop, opening up Word and typing in where you want to be in 10 years? Does it involve more than this? Or is it just literally putting something on paper, pinning it up in your office, or popping it, you know, where you make your coffee to remind you every day that this is what you're working towards?
Great
Hang on,
question.
Shannah got all the tools
Yeah, I certainly do.
available at Kmart. Not I'm trying to sell anything. It's a non-commercial podcast, but you show us, and please show us if you have. I mean, it's you know.
Yeah. So it is that simple, right? The brain is lazy. If I say we live in Melbourne, we just live in Melbourne. If I say, well, we live in Melbourne, and how about we go to Sydney and then Brisbane and then Darwin and then Perth, and we finish in the Maldives, what just happened to your brain? It just had a map. It just all of a sudden goes, I know what I'm doing now. I know what direction I'm going. We're the same. So when we do a life plan, you know, we start with just writing, you know, the years down the page. 2023, 2024, 2025, you know, all the years. And then you write your age next to the years, and then your kid's age. And then you start saying, what's on my bucket list? Then we start saying, where do I want to be financially by the end of the year? Where do I need to be financially next year and the year after in order to be able to retire how I want to? So we start reverse engineering. Where are the big birthdays? Where are the big anniversaries? What are the big milestones? You know, if my son's doing year 12, it is not a year for me to go and walk the Camino Trail. That's not my commitment to my child. So I'm going to do it the year after. You know, so all of a sudden you've got a chessboard to play with, and you can start and move things around and see what it feels like, because it's going to talk back to you. It's that simple. Then we put it to life with goals and habits and everything like that. And then we bring it into the visual. So all athletes, you know, that I work with have vision boards, and we have mood boards up, and I've got 3 here in my office. I am looking at words that inspire me. They're all over my mirror in the bathroom. For 20 years, I've looked at words. My values are smack in the middle. That's who I work for the rest of my life. That's my purpose. I've got visions of, you know, I've got pictures here that inspire me on my boards. I've got the quotes I never ever want to forget. I've got the words that really rock me. It's all there. So I can't get lost. It's got my map is right in front of me. It's right in front of me, sitting here printed out on my 20-year plan. It's on the wall here with all the pictures and all of the words. I have a shower. It's all there in the bathroom. I can't forget. My values have been here on a sticky note for 20 years. I just see them. That's the boss. That's who I report to. If I have to make a decision, does it actually add to these values, or does it really take away? So it allows me to say the gracious no, that doesn't work for me. Sorry. It's actually that simple. And when I coach people, we do it all together. We develop the 20-year plan. You know, I play devil's advocate. I teach them about coming back to self all of the time. I talk to them about the art of breath and really centering yourself when you work on yourself. We talk about habits, like what is the habit that you want to do for 20 years? So we start with the 3 M's. Make your bed, move your body, mindfully breathe. Every day. Imagine if every day for the rest of your life you got up, made your bed, walked for an hour and did some mindful breathing. How would you then open up to your job? That's first. We work on self first, Then we go into the marathon of the day, which is the job. But then how do you cool down? Like athletes cool down. They switch off, they recover, they hydrate, they do their nutrition, they ice their legs or whatever they do. What's your plan that is going to give you longevity, that's going to let you avoid burnout? So, every night, my nighttime routine is, I have a cold swim in our pool. I live in Melbourne. We have a freezing cold pool. I don't need to go to an ice bath. I've got one in the backyard. I lie with my legs up the wall while I watch television. I invert. I get the blood going the other way. I make sure my clothes are out on the floor in the dark, ready for my morning walk. I've got my gratitude journal. So these is not done all at once. It's actually built over time. Just built over time. It's like every year you pop the bonnet of the car and you do some fine tuning. So every year you get a chance to fine tune your habits as you age and enter different stages about what's most appropriate for you. For me at 53 to go and run a marathon, it's not going to serve me. I'm all about preservation. I'm all about strength and flexibility, and walking is enough, and weights is enough, and yoga is enough, and Pilates is enough. So marathon days are over. I don't want to do that to my joints anymore. So different ages and stages means you will keep fine-tuning about what's appropriate for you at the time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. Absolutely
Very
makes
powerful
sense.
stuff.
Yeah, and you know what's always punched me when I speak with coaches, successful leaders. From the outside, we always think that there is a sophisticated system or way or procedure, and then what you say is, make sure that positive stuff or your visions is in front of you, because your brain is not strong enough to remember. Make sure that you work on yourself and love yourself. Make sure that you have time to recover. I mean, you have not said anything that anyone in this world can do. But I want to ask this question, because this question was posed to me by my coach that been coaching me for almost 2 decades as well. Love yourself. This is not easy. And then I agree with you. The minute you love yourself, I remember when I think I went to Anthony Robbins' seminar, and he said, if anything that you do is like your first love, you can achieve anything, because you do everything. You can walk on the Rhine to visit her or him because you love her. You love them. And if you love yourself, of course you will work on yourself. Of course you will not put bad stuff in your body because you love yourself. Can you go deeper around how do we start loving ourselves? I'm a pizza shop owner, Shannah, and my shop is not successful. Everything I do is wrong. Bloody global chain pizza shop that do a worse pizza opening beside my shop that come with my ingredients from my grandparents. And I have to stop today and say, I need to work on myself first to be able to compete. And I need to love myself. And I don't know where to start to love myself. I can love other people, but loving myself is difficult. Where do I start?
Well, when you were 3 years old and you went to the mirror, what did you see?
Happy.
Correct, right? We go to the mirror
happy,
when we're 2 years old, 3 years old, and we all have this memory because we haven't been tarnished yet. We love the person staring back at us. You can even kiss the mirror. Some kids kiss the mirror.
Yes.
And they put their nose up to the mirror and they pull faces in the mirror and they dance in the mirror and they stare at their best friend because they haven't got any friends yet. So we all have this amazing inner child in us, and the feeling of that, because we've felt it before, inside. And then as we get older, we move away from the mirror, and then other people start to program us. So when we decide to make the decision to empower ourselves and to find happiness, we actually need to go to the mirror. It doesn't come in a new car and a new watch and selling 10,000 more books, because that only lasts a week. We actually need to go to the mirror every day and be the best friend and find ourselves again, because we're all in there. So my achievement every day is washing my hands, as I said, and doing 3 breaths to stop running and to raise my eyes, because there's a mirror in every bathroom. There's a mirror next to every tap. It's right there. Look up. Actually look in the mirror and say, how are you, best friend? What do you need right now? Do you need a hug? Do you need to kick up the bum? What do you need? What do you need right now? And sometimes it's a hug. Sometimes it's permission to stop and giving yourself permission to take a pause. Sometimes it's like, no, you've got this, and you go harder and you do this and you just get stuff done today, you know? So there is amazing way is just to start by looking in the mirror. And, you know, Mel Robbins has just taken that whole thing to educate everybody, which is the high five habit, is to high five yourself in the mirror every day. And this has been on, you know, Louise Hay started talking about this, you know, 40 years ago. The mirror is the answer. So when we can start the inner critic and start quietening that inner critic and start a new relationship with ourselves, then we look at the business from a very different point of view. When a little child comes home from work and says, from school, and says, oh, I've been picked on in the playground, and we give them a hug. We give them a hug, and then we work out a strategy, but we give the hug first. We don't say, well, what did you do wrong? And it's your fault, and maybe you upset them, and we don't lay into them straight away. We give them a hug first. We need to give ourselves the hug first in order to come up with a proper strategy. We need to breathe first. So people are very reactionary. They love, you know, criticizing themselves, comparing themselves. Imagine if you taught a 3-year-old to do that. That's the way to success. So we need to unlearn and relearn. And that's what coaches are for. We want to get you to unlearn some of those things that are really sabotaging and destructive and not true, and what society says about work harder as a badge of honor, that's sort of not really good anymore. So let's work at being a healthier version of you. So if you're an extremist, we just want to keep moving the dial so that you become a healthier version of being an achievement junkie. I'm still an achievement junkie. I still achieve every day ridiculous things, but a much healthier version, because I'm pacing the day with the breath, the mirror, the breathing, the washing the hands. And I've got my plans here, and I've got my words here that support me.
You know what I love, Shannah? You mentioned that your values, and then something that a lot of business owners will struggle to do is to actually say no. You know, the first time you had to do this, how difficult is it to be able, because we're so used to saying yes to everything, you know, yes to business, yes to employee requests, but to actually, or yes to meetings, you know, sometimes our calendars are so overwhelmed. I'm just thinking, how great would it be to actually say no? Yeah. How difficult is it to get into this mindset of, okay, it doesn't fit in, not with a business's values, because, you know, everyone has their business's values, mission, vision statements up there, but my own values, and then say no to that.
It's very powerful. So many of us have the disease to please. We've become people pleasers because it's filling a part of us that makes us feel good. We're wanted and we're needed. But if you have a great relationship with yourself in the mirror, you want to protect that person as much as possible. And you will do whatever it takes to protect their values. So you very easily can then start saying, well, you know, thanks for that invitation, but, you know, I can't make it this time. But what people do is go into 50 sentences about why they can't make it and make up stories, instead of just saying, thank you for the offer. I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, I can't make it this time. Full stop. But most people go into the story of, well, you know, because I'm really tired and I need to have an early night and I'm decided not to drink, so I'm not going out. We don't need to give people the story. We just need to very kindly say, thank you, I appreciate you, but it doesn't work for me right now, or I can't make it. And then it becomes really simple to say no. Super simple. Very easy. I love it.
You make it sound so easy.
I went from FOMO, fear of missing out, to JOMO, joy of missing out. I have no problems missing out on things if it means that it's going to, going to that event or something is actually going to really disturb my health. And when you live with chronic fatigue, you're so guarded. It's a gift. It's the best gift that ever happened to me, but was burnout, because now I'm so mindful and so aware of my energy. And if I want to have a long-term career, which I do, another 20 years, I need to make sure that I never let my energy go into the red again. I have to keep servicing the car. I have to keep putting petrol in the tank. I have to keep popping the bonnet and fine-tuning my habits. I have to keep elevating and evolving as a human. So, yeah, you don't need all that stuff when you become friends with yourself. And that's who you are without your job, right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
if I took your jobs away from you today and to all the listeners, and we said, no, you're fired today, or your business is shut, it's all over, what do you do tomorrow? So if my business closed today, I've got a 20-year plan here. I've got 25,000 things on my bucket list and courses that I want to do when I get time. And I've got my mental, physical, and emotional health to keep learning about and challenging myself and giving me purpose. I'd be fine without my job, but I love my job. But I would feel it. I would reinvent myself. I wouldn't go into a deep hole of depression because I've done enough work to create the human. So we want to create the human being and the career at the same time.
And Shannah, can I ask another question that I think very relevant? There are people, and we are fortunate if something happened bad tomorrow, that we might be able still go to fish or yoga or sports or bucket list or training. But there are people that they will have no opportunity to do that, because the minute they lost that, they do not have the financial backup to be able to do that. So I'm not talking about the financial side, but can you please help us to understand the connection between really work on your values and loving yourself, and when storm do happen and can happen anywhere in the world, whether it's a tsunami that suddenly happened in the middle of Indonesia or economic crisis or COVID, whatever you name it, how this is connected? What do you say to us that, hey, having these values, loving yourself and having a life plan is actually help you when major storm do happen?
Because you've got perspective, because you can see 20 years, and there's going to be some plan B has to happen. That's why I wrote plan B actually in COVID. It's about embracing and navigating change. So the storm will come. What do we do when the storm comes? We need to stop. We need to stop. We need to grieve what just happened. Right? And people don't give themselves permission to grieve when something happens. So we grieve, then we rewrite the story so it's not toxic. We rewrite the story that we're telling ourselves. It's all in my book there. And then we need to heal. Once we heal, then we create the next plan. So we've got our plan, going around the country and ending in the Maldives, but sometimes we'll have to take a detour because there will be a storm. You will get curveballs thrown at you. But then because you've got a plan, you can move back towards the plan. And it doesn't need to cost any money. We can do free yoga. We have the internet with everything that you need on it. Podcasts. We can learn. Every morning is learning. I walk for an hour and I listen to a podcast and I'm inspired and I'm learning because I'm thirsty to be a student of life. So even if we have no money, we can really sit down and go, okay, well, what's the most important to me now? It's my mental health. What can I do for my mental health? I can start to journal the grief and get it out. I can start these processes of things that I need to do in order to heal, in order to pick myself off the ground. If someone falls off their bike, We don't say, get up and quick run, keep going. We say, stop and catch your breath. Stop. You just fell off your bike. Sit down, catch your breath, ground yourself a little bit. Let's look at the wounds. Now let's make a plan. We're exactly the same. Every time we have a divorce or a cancer scare or a breakup or a deal goes badly at work, you just fell off your bike. But we need to stop then and just have a breath and then really think things into our logical order and look at our plan and then just make some really great decisions moving forward. But we need to grieve and we need to heal. And people miss those two stages and then they get very lost.
What you said there, Shannah, is so powerful with this, plan B, because I've read, there's, and this is where I think business owners put a lot of pressure on themselves. They have their plan A with no plan B. So they need to make plan A work, because if it doesn't work, it's the end of the world. So this, for any business owners out there listening that just have this plan A without a plan B, what would you say to them? Because it sounds like this is where we can actually take a breath and simplify things, knowing that we have a backup. Is there any advice you'd give them?
Yes, it's control the controllables. We need to control the controllables. So some things are not going to be in your control, but you need to have a contingency plan. Well, if I'm going on my walk on the Camino, what happens if I'm going to get blisters? I need to take with me what would happen in case I get blisters. Am I taking antibiotics in case I get an infection? I have my plan B right here in my pocket. What happens if something happens to my parents and I have to jump on a plane? Just be ready, so plant that seed of in case. So I always do that. As a life coach, I never know for 20 years where the next dollar comes from. I don't know. Yeah. So if I look at next month, it's empty until people sign up. Like, I don't know. So I have to live with, for 20 years, never knowing where the next dollar comes from. That insecurity, that anxiety. So I just trust. If I show up every day, best version of myself, if I put out into the world and do a good job and love my job, I have to trust that it'll keep going. And if it doesn't, go get a different job. But I'm not going to rule my day by, well, how come I made that much last month and this much this month? As long as I've got a great financial plan for myself and an incredible saving strategy for myself, which is automated. So it means I can't overspend at all. In fact, I'm the opposite. I always have no money in my bank account because it's all been stashed and invested. And I get a check from, my books come in. I'm not even allowed to spend it. I don't even let myself spend it. No, that goes into the plan so that it will be exactly where I want to be at the right time.
Now, Shannah, I have a question for you. So you are a very experienced coach. You are an experienced leader prior to owning your consultancy coaching business. You met with a lot of leaders. Your husband is a successful leader. How difficult to instill such an important, and sounds not difficult, right? Making a plan, love yourself, work on yourself, make sure that you have a plan B, make sure you recover, make sure you rest, control the controllable. This is all non-rocket science stuff. This is literally what the grandparents might say. How difficult and how successful, though, if people actually do this? Because you met with sports people, successful CEO, you live with it, you do it. It's amazing. You said, I don't have a client next month, but I look like this. I show up like I have 200 clients for the next 200 years. And you know what? You actually attract people by showing up like that. Now, how difficult, but then how successful if people do work on it?
Well, it's a little bit like drinking water. Drinking water is easy to do and easy not to do. Right? Why do people not drink water? Why do people walk around with headaches? Why are people sluggish? Because they didn't have 2 liters of water a day. We all know, go and drink 2 bottles of water a day. But people won't do it, right? Because they don't make it a habit. They haven't made the successful components a habit. So there is a bottle of water in my car. There's one here at the desk. I have to have a bottle of water in the shower. I have to have another bottle by lunch. So then I'm done. But if I don't do that, like it's actually just do it, you know. If I don't walk every day, I'm not going to be that person. So just get up and walk every day. Just do it. Stop the story. Stop the excuses. Just fall in love with the process and you will get the result. It's the process that gives the result. We all know, like when COVID hit, you know, I put a big sign in the pantry, go to the fridge, because my whole life had turned upside down. I have worked in this home for 20 years and all of a sudden my kids and my husband are here. Like my whole world, it's like turned upside down. And I just kept going to the pantry because everyone was going, what's to eat? What's to eat? You know, the kids, what's to eat all day. So I was going to the pantry and I said, I'm just going to eat a lot of food and I don't want to. So I put up a sign in there for myself, go to the fridge. You are only allowed to eat something from the pantry if you've had something from the fridge. And the fridge is full of carrots and apples and bananas and celery, and then go to the pantry. But the brain is so lazy. It needs structure and it needs prompting. And that's why we program our phones with our value. My values come up every single day at 9 a.m. on my phone as one of those recurring things. For 20 years, I see the same little alert. Can't forget. You know, we program our watches to breathe or to walk or to drink some water, and that because the brain actually needs that. So all of the things that we talked about, Gus, as you said, is easy. Grandparents did it. We actually just need to do it. And we all need to find out, what does it take? Why do I still need a sticky note 20 years later? Still need to see it every day. Because if I don't see it, guess what happens? I might forget. But it's right in my face. It's jammed in my face. It's really important. So whatever's important to you, we need to make sure there is visual. There is visual, or there is habit stacking. So when you wash your hands and you want to breathe, you need to put a sticky note on the soap bottle that says, take 3 breaths and look in the mirror. And in COVID, I was doing Zooms with 600 people who were writing a sticky note saying, breathe and look in the mirror. And it was life-saving for them. So sticky notes are our best friend.
And I love what you said, just do it. For anyone listening today, we've learned so much. The worst we could do now is take this all in and not actually do something about it. It's just do it, right, Shannah?
Just do it. We all know.
Take that first step.
You know, if you have wine before you go to bed, you're not going to sleep. So why keep drinking wine before you go to bed and being tired? You're like, let's just do it. Let's stop the excuses. Let's fall in love with self. Go to the mirror. Start the relationship with yourself. You are not your job. That's just what you do. And we can do it with passion and purpose and energy. But the person driving it can either be very destructive or very into sabotage or have a big inner critic, or we can show up with just pure joy. And we can only do that if we've really taken a hold of parenting ourselves with kindness and love and great habits, and we've done the work on ourselves.
And looking at the time, before I hand it over to Gus to wrap up, Shannah, you mentioned books. Can you just tell us a bit about your books, and also, like myself, where can we go to for more information?
Yes. So the best-selling book
to learn more about what you do and more about yourself.
Yeah, the best book or the biggest seller is The Life Plan, which you can just go online and order, or it's at Kmart, it's at Dimmicks, etc. But not all stores carry. So there's The Life Plan. There's also Plan B, which is about what happens when you get the curveball, and it gives you a step-by-step bullet point instructions, so you can't get lost. They're the two biggest ones, and the vision board kits you can order online as well. There's a lot of free resources on my website at shannahkennedy.com. There's free vision board kit on there. There are free screensavers on there with the words to train your brain. There's free vision board screensavers on there for you. So there's a lot of free resources there as well that I think are really important as a foundational piece for people. And there's Instagram, you know, Shannah Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Shannah. Fantastic. And I'm looking at the time. Gus, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap up. We have learned so much in this short time. So looking forward to the wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you. And Shannah, thank you again for donating your insights, donating your time. There's a lot of people out there that currently are searching for purpose, visions, trying to understand what success looks like. I learned a lot listening to you. I wrote a lot of things, and then I scribble it again because it's not quite accurate. So I hope I do justice summarizing key points that I like. And to the audience, please refer back to this interview because I think it's very difficult for me to express all the key ingredients from Shannah Kennedy. So the topic that we talk about that really provoke a lot of us is, who are you without your job? And this is required time for us to understand. To be successful in your career and job, you need to show up the best version of yourself. Hence, you need a life plan, and working on yourself is key so you can show up the best version of yourself. So how do you show up well? How do you working on yourself for the next 20 years? And that's only one chapter. You say, make sure you fall in love with yourself first. This way you will start working on yourself. Just like when we love someone, we will work as hard as we can, walking under the rain, walking under the sun, to do anything for the loved ones. Plan in decade, think in years, work in months, and let go and be present on the day. Show up the best version of yourself. Then you said, when you decide to empower and love yourself, go to the mirror and see and ask yourself and talk to yourself. High five yourself every day, because the brain is lazy. The brain needs reminder, not only for what we need to do to work on ourselves, but the brain needs to remember that we actually have to love ourselves to be able to show up the best version of ourselves. Have a plan, but also have a plan B. It's okay if your plan A and plan B not working, because you can control what you can control and you can't control what you can't control. Make a key component of your life a habit, and then you will fall in love with the process. Is it difficult to do all this? Is it difficult to execute what Shannah shared with us for the last 1 hour? Well, it's like drinking 2 liters of water a day. It's your choice to make it difficult or easy. It's just like drinking water. For me, now I have a bottle of water. Now I keep thinking, is it difficult to drink that water? No, of course not. But it's become a choice. Our brain is lazy, hence we need to prompt and remind ourselves on our key component. So it's become a habit and become a process. Shannah Kennedy, thank you so much. I hope I do justice by summarizing your insights. For the audience, please make sure you go to her website, shannahkennedy.com, if I'm right, yeah? Yes. And go to the bookshop, Kmart. There's Shannah Kennedy books and things that we can learn. So thank you again. We are lucky to have you on our show. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Shannah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye everyone.